Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Prince Automation Destination. This side Prince. I hope you are doing well. So today we are going to talk about how to test a MCP server with the help of Postman. But before that, let us try to understand what is the need of this particular feature in Postman. So if you haven't heard the term MCP, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It provides context to LLMs with the help of which LLMs can talk to data sources and can pull the data from data sources and can publish the results onto the tools, right? So this is the purpose of MCP. We will soon try to understand, right? Now, as there are like many servers, many MCP servers coming into the market every day, so it becomes important to test them as well. So that is the reason Postman has introduced this particular feature. So we will be discussing about the same, right? So without further delay, let me jump onto the discussion. So we'll be validating a MCP server with the help of Postman. So what we'll be learning as part of current discussion, we will try to understand what is MCP, what is Selenium MCP, how to make a request in Postman, how to validate the functionality of MCP server, connecting to Selenium MCP server from Postman and performing Selenium operations on Chrome browser with Postman, and as a result we will be validating the functionality of Selenium MCP server. Now let me go to the official documentation of Selenium MCP, right? So this is Selenium MCP, not Selenium MCP, MCP I mean, right? So what is MCP? MCP is an open protocol that standardizes how applications provide context to LLMs, right? So LLM is large language model, that is a AI model. So if we want to take some output from LLM, we need to provide the context, right? For example, we need to type in some information like act as a quality assurance engineer and create the test cases for this particular module, right? So this is how we provide context, and as a result it gives output. So let me show you from one example, right? Suppose we have a functionality available for application which has a login page which has two fields, username and password, and login page has following options: login button, forget password, and remember me. So what we can do is we can type in to AI tools such as ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, act as a quality assurance engineer, create manual test cases for the following functionality, right? So we are going to copy it and we are going to provide it as an input or as a prompt to the LLM, right? And as a result, LLM will produce the output, meaning the AI tool will produce the output, right? So now how this information came, right? So this information came from stakeholders, which would have been documented somewhere in SRS, or let us say it is documented in Confluence, right? So instead of copying this particular context from this particular Confluence and providing it to LLM, what we can do is we can create or establish a connection between LLM and Confluence, and we can read this particular information from the Confluence itself instead of copying and pasting. So as a result, we can get the context of this particular Confluence page, right? So this is what is the purpose of MCP. So MCP provides the context to the LLMs, right? So it is like a CPOT. So as like we have a CPOT using which we can connect to different peripherals. Similarly, this MCP is a unified protocol using which we can connect to different data sources. These data sources could be Confluence, Jira, it could be GitHub, right? Now let us try to understand why MCP. So it helps us building agents and complex workflows on top of LLMs, right? So by default, LLM does not have capability to talk to data source, such as if it want to talk to Confluence, it does not have that capability, right? So with MCP, it becomes possible, and there are like many servers available in the market. So if I go to the official GitHub repository, so this is the official GitHub repository where we can take a look at different MCP servers, right? So if we want to, for example, talk to Git, if we want to talk to our local file system, GitLab, Google Drive, Google Maps, so what we can do is we can directly utilize these MCP servers in LLMs and we can talk to these uh, data sources, right? Now let us come back, right? So LLMs frequently need to integrate with data and tools, right? If LLM want to get the context of Confluence, it need to be integrated, right? And this is where MCP comes into the picture. MCP provide the growing list of pre-built integrations. So these are the pre-built integration already available. So instead of writing a custom code to connect to a particular data source, we can utilize these MCP servers, right? It has flexibility to switch between LLM. So we don't need to rely on a particular LLM. Instead, we can choose or switch between, let us say, GPT-4o, we can use Claude Sonnet, right? We can use Llama, right? And best practices for securing your data, right? So when we'll be connecting to this MCP server, what will happen is with this particular MCP, we'll be running one MCP server that will be running locally, right? So this is the architecture, right? Let us try to understand. First of all, we have MCP client, right? Host with MCP client. So this MCP client could be a Claude, right? Which has the capability to talk to MCP server, right? So this is the client server based architecture. So this is the MCP server. Now let us say this particular MCP client, right, which is having a LLM, want to talk to a data source. Let us say it want to talk to file system of your system, meaning if for example we want to get the directory of D drive, so by default it cannot talk to this. And suppose there is a like MCP server, as I just showed, there is a file system MCP server available, right? So what we can do is we can utilize this particular MCP server, which has capability to connect to this particular file system, and then we can create a connection between this particular MCP client and this particular MCP server, and as a result LLM would be able to talk to this particular data source. And if you will type in LLM that please fetch D directory and fetch all the directory of D drive, it would be able to give us a result. And now suppose we want to, for example, access the database. So what we can have is, let us say we want to access Postgres database. So we have a PostgreSQL MCP server is also available, right? So what we'll simply do is we will simply integrate Postgres MCP server into our MCP client, and as a result we will be able to access this particular Postgres database, right? And now we can, these are the local data sources. Similarly, if we want to talk to outer world, which is available on the internet, so that is also possible. So we can have MCP server, right? And we can talk to the external APIs as well, right? So this is what is MCP server, right? What is MCP? So it is a client server architecture where we have a client which want to talk to data sources, and that is possible with the help of MCP server, right? Now let us try to understand what is Selenium MCP, because we are going to connect to Selenium MCP from Postman, and we will be validating the functionality of Selenium MCP with Postman, right? So similar to these MCP server, there is one MCP server introduced by Angie Jones, right? She is the developer of MCP server. What she has done is she has provided the Selenium functionality into this particular Selenium MCP server. So she has provided functionality of start browser, navigate to a URL, find element, click element, and so on. Also, she has provided the configuration as well, how to connect to this particular MCP server, right? So this is what is the configuration, right? Now let me come back here, and this is how we are going to do. So this is a user who want to validate Selenium MCP server with the help of Postman. So he will be creating a MCP request, and then he'll be making a connection with the Selenium MCP server, and he'll be trying to perform operations, and as a result he will be validating Selenium MCP server with the help of this particular Postman, right? So this is the UI, right, where we can check the MCP, which is the new feature, right? And this is after we click on MCP, this is how it look like, right? Now let us go to Postman, right? And I'm simply going to click on new, and here we will be seeing MCP. So what we are going to do, so we will see this particular request. So if you will see, there is two type of request. STDIO, this is for local MCP server. So most of the servers are going to be local. In case we want to connect to remote MCP server, we can choose as HTTP. So first I will try to connect a local MCP server, and then I will try to connect a remote MCP server, right? So now what I need to do, I need to go to that Selenium MCP server, right? And I need to copy this configuration, and in Postman I need to simply provide this, right? So as soon as I provide this, so this command says npx stand for running the node module, -y for yes. So it will download this particular MCP Selenium node module, and it will run it. As a result, Selenium MCP server would be running locally. Now let me try to create a connection with this, right? So it will create a connection with this. It may take some time, so let us wait for the same. So it is connected. So as soon as it is connected, we are able to see these sections, right? So we can see the tools, right? So whatever the tools or capability defined by this particular MCP server, so we are able to see these options, right? So in order to launch our application, what we need to do, we need to first launch a browser. So for that purpose, she has provided this functionality, start a browser. So for now, she has provided support for Chrome and Firefox. So now let us test this functionality, test this particular start browser functionality. So I'm simply going to click on run, and as a result, it should open a Chrome browser, right? So it has opened Chrome browser. Now what we can do is we can navigate to a URL, right? So let us say we want to navigate to source demo, right? So I'll simply copy it and I'll click on this navigate option, right? And I'll provide this particular URL, and as soon as I click on run, I'll be able to see this particular URL is launched, right? User is navigated to this particular URL. Now let us try to enter the data in username. So for username, this is the ID. So what I'm going to do, so for entering the data, what we need send keys, right? So here there are multiple options. First of all, we need to choose the locator strategy. So I have taken ID, right? So I'm going to choose ID, and then we can enter the data. So that username is this one. So it is provided here itself, right? So we can click on run. As a result, it should have entered standard user. Similarly, we can locate password as well, and instead of username this time, we will provide password, and we will copy the password as well, right? So if I click on run, password should also be entered. Now let us locate login, right? So for login, the ID is login button. Now I'll go for another functionality, that is click element, and here I'll be providing this particular login button, right? So for login, we don't need to provide any text, we simply need to provide the locator. So if I click on run, it should be able to log in. So if you notice, we are able to log in. So this is how we can test the functionality of a Selenium MCP server with the help of Postman, right? So this is one thing, right? Now so far we like tried to connect MCP server locally. Similarly, we can connect to a remote MCP server as well. For that purpose, there is the MCP server, like there could be multiple remote MCP server available. So one such server is provided by MCP, which is the 𝐏𝐸CO server, just for demonstration purpose. So I'm going to connect it, right? And here we can type hello Prince automation destination, right? So if I'll click on run, it will give me the output, right, in the code, right? Similarly, we can connect to other other MCP servers. So for example, we want to talk to let us say GitHub, right? So I'll be going to GitHub, right? And here somewhere there would be some configuration. So these are the functionality provided. We can create or update a file, we can push files, we can search repository, we can create a repository, right? And if I come down, we'll be able to see the configurations, right? So if we want to go by a Docker approach, we can use this. If we want to use npx, that is not module based, we can copy this, right? So in Selenium MCP case, we didn't need the GitHub credentials, but in this case, as we are going to talk to a GitHub repository, right, we need to provide the GitHub token, right? So I'm going to simply go here, going to provide this particular request, right? And if you will notice, it has environment, so that's why environment is also populated, and here we need to provide the token, right? And let me copy this particular token, right? So I have already kept it. I mean, you can create your access token, right? So here, if you will provide, let me click on connect, and as a result, it would be able to connect to my GitHub repository, right? And it would be able to perform operations on my GitHub, right? So let us say we want to create a repository, but before that, let me navigate to my this particular GitHub repository. If I refresh it, so I had a sample already created, right? So there are like 26 repositories. Now let us do one thing. Let me provide the repository name. So we are going to create the repository. So let us say Postman demo, right? Whether we want to keep it private or public, let us make it private. Whether we want to initialize readme or not, right? Let me click on run, right? And as a result, it should be able to create the repository. So let me refresh, and we should start seeing 27 repository. So Postman demo is created. So this is how we can establish the connection between the data source and the LLM, right? So this is, but with the help of Postman, we are just validating this functionality, right? Okay, so this is how we can validate the functionality. Apart from it, what we can do is we can track the timeline as well. So whatever the request we are making, we can track those, whatever the operations performed, right? So we can validate everything as like we do in case of APIs. We can store them as a collection. So suppose I want to give it name Selenium MCP, right? Or we can provide the collection name. Let us say we want to keep it in some new collection, right? So we can simply go and store here, right? So similar to whatever we do for REST APIs, we can store these a collection, these are the collection, we can export it, we can save it, we can share it with our team members. So this is how we can validate any Selenium MCP, any MCP server, I mean, with the help of Postman. And this is what I wanted to cover as part of current discussion. Thank you for watching, and I would request you to please like, share and subscribe. Thank you once again.